So as you leave, please be sure to drop these back off at the table where you signed in so that the university can use them. Okay, so our next set of speakers are going to focus on food waste. We've been talking a lot about the challenges and the need to have better food waste solutions in the food service industry. So first up is Scott Brubaker from New Jersey DEP. He is going to talk about the food waste legislation and make sure that folks are aware of what's happening. He served a variety of roles at the NJDEP for the past 30 years, and he's going to tell us more about New Jersey's legislative mandate to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030, which is not that far away. So, Scott.
Thank you very much, and I do want to say that I did spend most of my career in enforcement, solid waste enforcement. So Tom, I did just want to ask if you got a permit for that compost thing going on with you. Okay, so, but we did, I did want to talk about this legislation that was passed last July, and DEP was charged in this legislation to draft a plan that would move New Jersey towards the legislative goal of 50% less food waste generated by the year 2030. The bill is really short. I'm just going to read the pertinent parts for you. It says there's established for the state a goal of reducing by the year 2030 the amount of food waste generated annually in the state by 50% of the amount which is generated in the year this act takes effect. Within 1 year after the effective date of this act, the Department of Environmental Protection, in consultation with the Department of Agriculture, shall develop and commence implementation of a plan to accomplish the state food waste reduction goal established in this bill. The department shall hold at least 3 public hearings, and so forth and so on. So, thank you, Senator Bob Smith. That is a very brief bill. And here we go, department, see what you can do with this kind of new thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through a little briefly. We have not put out this plan yet. This plan is being developed in draft form. We're a little bit behind on the 1 year that we were given to do it. But I want to bring you up to date on what this is all about and what the DEP has been doing to get ready to put this plan out. Okay, so here we go. So the legislation requires, as I said, a plan to to accomplish a 50% reduction in food produced that is never consumed by humans based on 2017 generation. Okay, the first point and most important point I have to make here, if you don't remember anything else from what I said, that this bill does not mandate the composting of food waste, does not mandate the composting of food waste or the recycling of food waste, but the reduction in the generation of food waste. The reduction in the generation of food waste, okay? Really, the legislature has kind of vaulted DEP into the forefront of this type of goal. Many states have goals that say they want to recycle, they want to compost. The legislature has moved us past all that to looking for DEP to look at the food supply chain. Okay, where does this food come from? Where are the losses in that supply chain? Kind of from the farm to the table or farm to the fork. Where are all the stops that food makes along the way, and how can we reduce the amount of food that's wasted in each of those stops? The only other state that has legislation like this is really the state of Oregon. Okay? They're a little bit, they've been at this for a little while, but our legislation probably their legislation matches ours the best of anybody's out there. So just think about this for a minute. We've got no regulations. We've got no specific legislation. The only requirement that's out there right now is for DEP to come up with this plan that will move us to a 50% reduction of food waste. DEP has no institutional knowledge of these most areas of the food supply chain. We have no authority to mandate anything to most areas of the food chain. So we are really going to build this program from scratch with the purpose of reducing the amount of food waste that's generated. Okay? As I read in legislation, we're going to hold some public hearings. We would certainly hope to have them later this fall. We have to use the 2017 food waste generation as a baseline. We'll talk about this in a minute for a comparison with how we're doing in the future as far as reducing that. One of the universal problems is actually quantifying the amount of food waste that's generated. Have been surprisingly few audits, I guess you could say, or studies to actually look in a bag of garbage, look into town's garbage, and actually see how much of that garbage is, in fact, food waste. Okay? For the first year, for 2017, we'll have to estimate by arithmetic how much of our municipal solid waste was, in fact, food waste. Okay? Go to the next slide. Okay, the impacts of food waste, most people would know these. I'm going to roll through these, but somebody said it today, 40 to 50% of the food that's produced is never eaten. $165 billion a year of food is wasted. That at a time when 11% of the New Jersey population is food insecure. When someone wastes a piece of food, they're not only wasting that food, but they're wasting all of the resources that were required to produce that food. And it is amazingly huge how much resources we spend to produce our food in this country. 10% of the total U.S. energy budget, 50% of our land is utilized to produce our food, 80% fresh water is consumed for the production of food. So just a tremendous amount of resources, let alone the fertilizers and the pesticides and everything else that was required to grow that food actually gets wasted when we waste a piece of food. Food, as we mentioned earlier, decomposes to produce methane, takes up landfill space. We're estimating, just based on what few actual audits are out there, that approximately 21% of the municipal solid waste in New Jersey is actually food. So it is one of the remaining largest components of our waste stream. Okay? Okay, so where's DEP in the plan development process? As I said, S3027 was signed into law last July. It requires the DEP to produce a plan in a year. So what's DEP been doing in the meantime? We've been learning. Okay? As I said, we didn't really have any institutional knowledge about food waste. We're researching, we're identifying the issues, the processes, and interested parties, such as yourselves, in food waste. We've been meeting with informal groups of all different kinds of stakeholders and sector and in the various sectors of the industry, and all of this is towards developing a draft plan to accomplish the legislative goal of 50% reduction by 2030. The next step that you will see is the release of this draft plan, which is under chain of command review in the department right now. That's why I'm not able to give you more specifics of it. It could all change anyway, but hopefully very shortly you will see, the next thing you will see is the draft plan, over which we'll hold the 3 required public hearings. We will take comments on that plan, and then we will utilize those comments, and we will release either another draft of the plan or release a final plan and begin implementation as appropriate. Okay, you all have seen this, but just so you know, our plan will utilize the EPA's food recovery hierarchy. I'll just call your attention to The first, the most preferred higher level goals in purple there are source reduction, okay, to reduce the volume of surplus food. That's really where our legislation has directed us to be. Next would be to feed hungry people through soup kitchens and donations and things like that. A little lower on the list would be to feed animals. Okay, so we're looking for those top parts of the triangle in this plan to reduce the amount of food. Okay? I know I'm going a little fast, but again, this is just a higher level overview. So in doing this research and talking to these people and learning about the issue of food waste, we learned a few things, and these are some of the higher level issues that we've identified. Number one, separated there because everything else can kind of be a subset of this, but the lack of awareness of the amount of food that's wasted in this country is probably the biggest issue. When we talk to people and we tell people that 40% of the food produced in this country is wasted, they're genuinely surprised, shocked, and concerned about it. Okay? But many, many people don't know about it. And concurrent with that, the general public really doesn't believe that they are responsible for it, or that they are part of the problem, but they really are. Approximately 40% of the food that's wasted is wasted at the residential consumer level. Okay, so it is mostly from households throwing out spoiled food that most of this food waste comes from. Okay, there's some along the other parts of the supply chain, but 40% just from food. And the important thing is if we can educate the consumer and the resident about the issue of wasted food, they're the same people that are going to work every day and working in businesses and institutions, and they can carry that knowledge of the issue of food waste into their businesses. A couple other things that we learned is that the issue of date labeling. Okay, everybody knows what a little date label is on your food package when you buy it in the store. What very few people know is what that date label actually means. And the important point there is that very few of those date labels are actually pointing to a health-based standard. Generally, they're the manufacturer or the grower saying, what's the best date to sell that product? When does it look best in the store? It is not telling you when that food will spoil. And as a result of that lack of knowledge and the lack of standardization of date labels, tons and tons of food are prematurely thrown out and wasted. Perfectly good food because somebody doesn't understand what the label means. Just throwing out good food when they really should be eating it. Okay? The other thing is that there's a big lack of understanding about the liability for food donation. A lot of people would like to. What? Question? Can we get you at the end? I'll get you at the end, okay? I just want to make sure I get through the polls. There's a misunderstanding about who's liable. Somebody donates food to a food bank or a soup kitchen. Is that person really liable? Well, the federal government has Good Samaritan protections, and New Jersey actually has heaped on top of that with its own. So there is legislation that protects people who have donated food, unless they've done so with malicious intent or intentionally given bad food. People are protected if you donate food. So that shouldn't really be a concern. The other thing we found out is there's a lack of coordination or information sharing within and between these supply chain sectors. We've identified about 7 sectors. You'll see them in the plan, you can comment on them, but we've identified the sectors as consumer/residential. I do not have these written down. Institutions, donations, retail, production, manufacturing, restaurants, that's some of you folks, and caterers. We put you together with caterers, the government at all levels, and nonprofit. So we have about 7 sectors that we've identified in the food chain. And our plan is going to address food waste on a sector-by-sector basis. Okay? But what we found out is there's a large variety within each sector on what people, how concerned people are, how knowledgeable they are about what they could do about food waste in their sector. Okay? The other thing, as I said, there's very little actual generation data. Okay, very few people have really taken the time and money to stand at a transfer station or even a landfill, open the bags of garbage and weigh them and see how much of that is actually food waste. Mercer County actually did do that in 2013 and found out, actually I think they found that 24% of the municipal solid waste was in fact food waste in Mercer County in 2013. Okay, it's one of the few actual studies that's out there. Okay, just again, higher level principles that we will be incorporating into the plan. In the plan itself, there'll be some more details about these, but kind of just make sense on a rational basis. Our plan is intending to prioritize attention and actions in sectors with the highest potential benefit, right? Just makes sense. Those areas with the largest potential for decrease in food waste or loss, those are going to be the priority of our plan. Where is that? That's with the consumers and the residents out there. Okay? We have discovered and are thrilled to learn that there actually are many, many folks that have been concerned about and are working in the area of food loss for a long time. So our plan is going to not reinvent the wheel. We're going to promote, leverage, and engage already established organizations. We're already well along. And some of them quite sophisticated, and some of them quite successful in actually reducing the amount of food waste. Like the food banks in New Jersey are tremendously well organized group dealing with the big wake firms and supermarkets in the state. They're doing a really good job of reducing food waste in those areas. Some other areas, residential and so forth, not so much. Many of these areas also have existing information, processes, and tools that are out there. For instance, that our plan will be pointing to. We're not going to reinvent them. They're already out there. Our plan is going to raise awareness of them. NRDC has a Safe Food campaign. EPA, US EPA, has food recovery tools for residential residences, meal planning. Refed, NRDC, they explain, they've got some pieces up there that explain the date labeling issue. There's many multimedia articles out there. Jim O'Neill from NewJersey.com wrote a really good, detailed, accurate article a couple of months ago. Went around really explaining the problem. And again, people are surprised when they hear the scope of the issue of food loss. Okay? So here's some possible near-term actions that may come out of our plan. Again, those plans will be distributed. We will hold public hearings over those plans. You'll have plenty of time to comment on them, but and these could change. Again, these are pending the DEP change recommend review, but our plan generally is intended to promote a sector-by-sector approach to raise awareness through multimedia channels. Some of our young people who I'll introduce and have been working on this really neat website. It's going to be like this clearinghouse. It's going to have everything you need to know about food waste and food loss in one place, and we think that's going to be a large part of our responsibility to bring all these things that are out there under one website, under one umbrella. Okay, so we're going to stand up and promote a clearinghouse type website. You got a question about food waste? You Google food waste, food loss in New Jersey. If you do it enough times, Google will send you right there. That's where we want to get to. This will be a really easy way for everybody from a resident consumer to a sophisticated Campbell soup business can actually go there and learn some things about reducing food loss. Okay. We will continue after the plan is been developed to continue to meet with interested parties to really work on fleshing out the implementation of that. We want to find some money somewhere to fund a food waste composition study. We want to bring in other levels of government. And then we want to support legislation establishing standards for the state labeling issue that I talked about. There's some federal legislation hanging around out there. We'd like to get behind that and support that. That's probably the best solution we can have. So I think that's going forward, comments will be requested. Our plan is a living document. We're not going to have all the answers, but hopefully we'll chart a course forward to eventually get to this goal. We want to elevate the issue of waste of food among different entities in New Jersey. We want to create a system where food waste data is collected, which is not now. And we recognize the fact that this process is long and complicated, but the issue is too important not to be addressed. And this plan is a starting point for that. Okay? That's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. Very glad to see you pull up the EPA food waste hierarchy. We talk a lot about the food waste and composting, but it's very important to remember the best way to reduce waste is not to produce it in the first place. So we couldn't have a plan that didn't really focus on reduction of food waste from the get-go. So thank you. Okay, next up we have Circle Karan from the Eco Complex, and she manages the Rutgers I can't say it, it's something, Eco Lignite Clean Energy Concepts and Accelerator, and currently working on the food, energy, water nexus and waste synergy by promoting integration of organic waste into development of the closed loop bioeconomy. So Circle is going to talk about some of the food waste solutions and approaches so we can have an understanding of what the options are.
Hi everyone. I know time is very limited, and you heard this morning about Eco Complex all morning. And in addition to we are at Rutgers University's one of the extension centers. We serve as a business incubator in clean technologies, but also we have Eco Ignite in the bottom of the first slide, and so we are running also an accelerator, because we believe that developing emerging technologies, they need to be tested, verified, and before they become commercialized. So this is all our, interest in Ignite activities, and so I'm not going to get into details. But as you know, you all hear about in the media, all events, urbanization in the fast pace, and the most important part, they say the resident generates twice as much waste as their rural counterpart, okay? And also, it is mentioned that food waste and organic waste generation is too high, as Scott mentioned before me, and the reduction is really the important part. But I will be talking after, there is food waste is generated, what to do with that. In fact, I shouldn't call it food waste, actually, I should call it a resource. Just the important part that how the United States food waste processing energy is, there is a big potential for energy generation. You can see that I'm just sharing with you. And as the EP mentioned before, that we're talking about EPA's upside down triangle, up top lines, but I will be talking about the bottom two, sections, how we can integrate and create new innovative strategies. As I mentioned, and also Christine mentioned, we're also working on food, energy, water nexus and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Especially we are concentrating on clean, affordable energy, clean water, and also affordable clean food. So the question is, how can organic waste be integrated into these activities? And it was mentioned before, but I believe we should again just to underline, it's really important. Environmental footprint of food is so high. We're talking about climate change, but also we should also talk about, when I say food, energy, water nexus, energy has a big water footprint. Water has an energy footprint, but calories we consume both energy and water footprint. In the past, 50 years, cropland increased only 12% for food. However, massive increase in the nitrogen and phosphorus and pesticide use. When we waste food, unfortunately, or when we consume food, I should say, we should twice. Not only we should think twice, but also many times we should think. The most important part also, these food systems, are they victim or cause. So we should really understand, when we are consuming food, trying to reduce creating food waste. So let's come back to New Jersey. New Jersey's recent CO2 emissions, okay? And so New Jersey also has great programs like solar, like wind initiatives. The question is, how about sustainable bioenergy, and can energy from organic waste be part of the initiatives that state is trying to mitigate climate change? So, and also creating a circular economy. So, obviously, creating effective regulatory programs is really important. Institutional infrastructure regulations we need, definitely. Market-based incentives. The most important also feedstock integrity and availability. Where is that food waste that I will be talking about, and how can we generate better technologies? The EP Director Scott Brubaker mentioned about the past bill. This bill that I'm not mentioning that it's already a law. I am just mentioning this Senate Bill 1206. It's sponsored again, Senator Smith. It's still waiting to be, to become a bill to be signed yet, and it requires large food waste generators to separate and recycle food waste. And also it amends the definition. Since it is not a law, I am not getting into details yet, but I just would like to bring your attention again what's happening in New Jersey food waste. And so when we did this after Sandy, we wanted to see what's happening in New Jersey's storm-prone counties. And one of our interns did this, and basically currently, in those counties, and it's basically almost half of the food waste generated from commercial waste is going into landfills. So the most important part, again, what is food waste, who generates it, and also how can we identify the amount. The data is so important. If we are trying to find solutions, first we have to understand the baseline. Yes, how much food waste we are generating, that's really important. You can see how food moves in this supply chain. Agriculture, processing, refrigerated storage and distribution, retail, and then it comes to your refrigerator or your table. So every step is generating waste, and also, post-consumer waste. So that was the pre-consumer until it comes to post-consumer, residential, education, facilities, health and wellness, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, nursing homes, and then hospitality sector, yourselves, restaurants, hotels, and then special events, and like conferences, certain places, banquet halls, religious events. So correctional facilities, food waste generation is really enormous. And then food banks, yep, people are donating food, but also not everything is maybe utilized. They generate food waste. And then airports, cafeterias creating enormous amount of waste, and also planes when they deplane their waste. So what happens to that waste? This is really an important amount, and we have to understand the availability of this food waste. And traditionally, this is the linear organic waste disposal. From farm to, currently what happens, either it goes, at the end, everything goes to landfills or incinerators, and then landfill gas generated, or incinerators do generate a little bit energy. So let's take a look more even closely. So food waste goes in either landfilling or incineration or direct composting. And then when in the landfill section, you can see that you can generate energy, but no nutrient recovery. When it comes to industrial composting, you create the only nutrient, but no energy generation. It's basically, they're not doing the full service. Why don't we combine the certain approaches? Why don't we create innovative strategies, and so basically, let's combine the new technologies, and because industrial composting may also create, it failed, I believe, in the state few times, the EP may know better than me, And so basically, let's create digestion. It's more innovative technology in a vessel, and then you can generate energy, and the effluent digestate coming out of digester can be great feedstock for composting, and combined with yard waste, green yard waste, and you can still generate nutrients. So basically, with this, you can close the loop, and so basically, closing the loop is going to help creating energy, recovering nutrients, is basically reducing the carbon footprint, reducing the water footprint, and so most are utilizing food waste. This is the most important part. So, where to locate these digesters or these innovative approaches? And the size of the digesters are the most important. You can have small digesters for education and demonstration. However, most efficient digesters are the large ones. And you cannot put digesters behind every cafeteria or behind every grocery store because it's going to create environmental challenges. And also, you have to install power generation unit in addition to digester, right? And basically, extra cost. So landfills, they have already installed power assets, power generation assets. So they can host these digesters. You can bring source-separated organic waste into landfills or wastewater treatment facilities or farms. Basically, those places are great locations to utilize organic waste and food waste. So basically, they should be centralized and where the waste is generated most. And so we should not create also drug trafficking. Other problem is so important that we have to make sure it's not occurring. So basically, when we are trying to locate citing these solutions, we have to be careful that we are not creating more problems. So what's happening in New Jersey also? Let's take a look closely. New Jersey is, I am just sharing a few projects. They are emerging in New Jersey currently. One of them is with the waste management. They created a core facility in Edison. What they're doing is they're collecting outdated produce from supermarkets. They're removing the packaging with their mechanical equipment, and then they created a slurry. They call it engineered, food-based engineered bioslurry, and then they send this to Rahway Valley Sewerage Authority for anaerobic digestion. And so what is acceptable for their facility? Obviously produce meat, seafood, dairy, but also incidentally acceptable like paper, food soil paper, cardboard, and bones and shells, what they're doing. And then they are basically creating soup-looking liquid, and then they put it into large tractor trucks, and they send it to Rahway Valley Sewerage Authority. And Trenton Biogas, they are currently building this digester in Trenton, and it's in the works. And basically, they will be generating 3.3 megawatt power, and they claim, they say that, so they will be bringing, in fact, food waste from New York. So interestingly, we are sending our waste into Pennsylvania, but we're receiving organic waste from New York. And then this project, Linden Renewable Energy Project, it's in the works also. And they will be locating this project in Linden. And so what they will be creating renewable natural gas when the project is finished. And also they will be bringing some waste from New York. So New Jersey waste will be delivered via truck, and also the New York waste will be brought to that facility by barge they collect. And then this is the Sewerage Authority project in South Jersey, and they made in Wineland. So they started digesting food waste and with their biosolids since 2016. They're generating electricity. And so these are the sort of emerging projects in New Jersey. But New Jersey needs more projects because we have a lot of organic waste. And also we have to obviously transition our business as usual practices for tomorrow's more innovative strategies and solutions. And as I mentioned, maybe the new approaches may include that co-locating digesters at the landfills so that they can transform themselves for tomorrow. So, because landfills, they do receive organic waste mixed with the municipal solid waste. Why don't we promote soft-separated organic waste as Princeton, as Lawrenceville, or Lawrence, Robert will do? So basically, in this case, we wouldn't increase the drug trafficking, okay? And we would utilize power generation assets at the landfills. And then you can still, and then landfills can generate extra revenue also, but also they can transform themselves for tomorrow. Greener and better technologies. And obviously landfills are not the only solutions, as I said. Parks and also wastewater treatment facilities. They could be the great solutions, great locations for. And with this also, I'd like to invite all of you, because we're organizing Innovations in Transforming Waste to Value-Added Products Symposium in New Brunswick, December 57. Food waste for value-added products will have a big, session. So I'd like to invite you all. And if you have any questions, thanks for your attention.
We had the agenda to do a Q&A now, but I think we're going to ask Gina to speak now about the biodigester, and then we'll have folks ask questions so we can sort of wrap this up on time. So Gina Talt is the campus's lab fellow, although I think you have a new title. What's your new title? Food Systems Project Specialist, and she was one of the lead project manager on the university's biodigester. And so Circle has given you ideas of some large-scale commercial processing facilities that may be coming online. And Gina's going to share, a very localized solution that they're currently working on here at the university. So,
Thank you, Christine, for that nice introduction. As Christine mentioned, here at the university, we are starting an exciting new project that will explore the potential for local food scraps recycling through the use of an in-vessel aerobic composting system developed by the company For Solutions. We have Representative Dr. Nick Smith-Sebasto, founder and executive chairman of the company, so he's also here if you have any other questions. But just wanted to say that this composting system will convert a portion of the campus's food scraps into a nutrient-dense soil amendment for campus grounds. It will represent a unique opportunity for students and staff to work together on a weekly basis towards a mutual goal to keep waste out of our landfills, while also serving an important academic purpose into more research around food waste conversion. So this project stems from my office's campus's lab program, which aims to pilot or use the campus as a test bed to pilot erosion solutions to global challenges such as food waste management. Once we understand the full costs and benefits of this pilot project, we plan to disclose an economic analysis to better inform other institutions like campuses and municipalities where small-scale systems make sense to better give them best practices in this field towards a responsible food waste management practice. So the issue, as many before me have covered already, is the fact that here in the U.S., organics collection and recycling isn't where it should be. Europe is way far ahead of us in this field. And the reason why is because of the lack of commercial facilities. And some of the barriers for this is due to high capital costs, lack of industry knowledge, and laws and regulations. And a few of the ones that were in place, as Mayor Lempert mentioned earlier, such as the facility in Delaware and the facility that Princeton was recently sending its organic waste, had to be shut down because of odor and contamination issues. So these events have really prompted a response to have more diverse composting systems at the local level. And as Sopal said, there's not going to be, it's really exciting to see so many different facilities becoming online, and they each have their pros and cons, and we do really need a diversity in solutions because every institution and facility has their own needs. Even though centralized facilities might be more efficient, local systems also have some positive benefits because in the terms of aerobic decomposition, the finished compost can be used, can go directly back to the community and help green neighborhoods and improve soil health. So the community gets to keep all the benefits of soil remediation, reduced erosion. We know here in New Jersey, floods and storm events are just going to become harsher and more frequent due to climate change. And of course to help grow healthy crops in the area. So centralized and far away facilities make it harder to return those benefits to local communities. The current solution has just been sending our organic waste to nearby farms, but that requires a lot of land, produces smelly odors, and it's not a feasible solution for campuses, restaurants. So here at Princeton, we are piloting on-site aerobic composting. So we're going to have a tour right after this of our biodigester. We're just going to quickly, we'll go over more of the details, but this is just a quick overview of the process, and it got a little cut off, but this graphic is courtesy of 4 Solutions. So starting tomorrow, actually, we are going to start the initial loading of our composting system by taking food scraps from this center, where we are, First Campus Center, and we'll bring it down to the facility where we will load it along with a bulking agent or carbon source. And so the carbon source that we are using are kiln-dried wood shavings from local New Jersey woodworking companies. And these wood shavings we recovered, and they would have been sent to the landfill. So it's another way we are practicing reuse and repurposing of value-added materials. So next, once that entire feedstock is loaded into the system, 4 Solutions technology uses a rotary drum and programmed rotation and aeration to accelerate the aerobic decomposition process, so that after 5 days, we will have finished compost. And for our system, that's if we load to full capacity, which is 5,000 pounds of food waste per week. And then from there, our grounds crew will offload the finished compost and apply it to our campus soils. And this process is a 1-to-1 ratio of food scraps to compost. So the end result is 1,000 pounds of food waste, 1,000 pounds of compost, which is about 1 to 1.5 cubic yards of compost in other terms. And then lastly, one of the benefits is just the social impact of having this project on campus. It will really reinforce the university's commitment to sustainability and foster dialogues about responsible food waste management. And we're going to get students involved in the operation of the system, and we've already had a few students do their final papers to help us better promote the project and make improvements to our operations. So one of them, this is a graphic, I think got a little cut off, that was adapted from a few students who wanted to better increase the social awareness on campus about this project. It also gives you a little overview about how the university goes about managing its food waste. So I have to give props to our campus dining team. Ever since 1997, they've been forward-looking, and they have been able to send their pre-consumer food scraps to be composted or used as pig feed in the region. Starting in 2015, we introduced post-consumer compost bins in the dining halls and First Campus Center. So this data is based on a typical month from last semester. So most of that goes as picked up by a company, local company, Organic Diversion, which then brings the food scraps down to farms in South Jersey to also be composted and used as pig feed. And so that's where the compost bin material that you have been using at this event is going to. And the reason why we don't put the bamboo plates in there is because it's either going to be fed to pigs, which are not going to like that, or it'll end up in windrows of compost piles and are not going to be able to break down because they're not chewed up already. But ideally, those bamboo plates are compostable because they're based out of plant materials. But that's just the reason why we told everyone only to put food waste into the bins. So then our digester will take about 1/6 to 1/5 of the total material to repurpose it or to create a soil amendment for campus grounds. And we're going to look into the long-term impacts on that to see if our university is able to reduce its reliance on synthetic lawn applications. Lastly, the challenge is we only have composting in Frist and in the dining halls. All other academic buildings and dorms, students either put their discarded waste either into landfill or recycling. And to give you a sense on how much that is, if you look at the whole pie chart of university household waste, which is all the material that is discarded from the university with the exception of construction and demolition, all the biodigester and organic diversion waste represents 20% of that pie, but most of it is the 60% landfill. And we don't know how much of that is food scraps. As Scott was saying, there's not a lot of baseline data, but we can use previous studies by the EPA or even Mercer County to know that that's probably going to be 20 to 25% food scraps, but we're still not sure. But the reason why it's very difficult to introduce composting into residential settings and academic buildings is because of the most likely probability of contamination. So, case in point. So first, upstairs, we could all take a field trip, but I spared you that and took some photos one morning last week. Actually has a post-consumer compost bin. As you can see, it's clearly labeled, it says food waste only, so there's a sign above. But one look into the bin, you already see there's a soda cup, plastic straw, a milk carton, paper, but even though the sign says food waste. So this shows you how contamination is such a big problem, not only on campus, but as you notice with the Bloomberg challenge and other areas, that's a real look into that. In the dining halls, the setting is more restricted. Students only have reusable silverware and dinerware, napkins, and the food scraps. So that stream is pretty clean, and that's why Organic Diversion can accept it and send it to those farms. And we haven't, we've been successful with that because we haven't had loads rejected, but they're very strict about that. However, campus dining has noticed in the past that on an average day they would end up with about 3 pounds of silverware in their compost bin. And because of that, they introduced these silverware retriever systems on top of the bin. And so it's been successful in catching the silverware if it does happen to be mistakenly thrown into there by the students. So that's one solution there. But with this pilot project, we are also going to engage with researchers and students to test the potential compostability of alternative plastics. So this is just a summary that Core Solutions have provided about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in their in-vessel aerobic digester. So it's somewhere in the middle between backyard composting and full-scale commercial composting. So it can break down some of these alternative plastics, but not everything. So in terms of dinnerware, Dr. Nick has found that EPI certified clamshells, bowls, and plates can be broken down in the system. PLA wax line cups, he's found that over 9 months, the product you still see parts of it in the finished compost. That plant-based plastic is so tied up that the heat generated cannot break it down. In terms of paper, it's okay to have up to 10% by weight PLA. And then the system is able to, the shredder can break down like wood-based or bamboo products, but the vessel won't fully compost the bamboo, like there still might be some shards of it in the finished compost, but when it's applied to the soil, it's going to biodegrade anyway because it's a plant-based product. And in our system, we're not using compostable bags in the toters because if those end up in the shredder, it'll jam the system. So we are not using any bags, and we're just going to be cleaning the hose and you'll see our operation when we go down there with like. So we do have a blog. It's been a long time since I updated, but we started the project. There'll be more frequent updates, and feel free to review and subscribe for them. And it's my contact information, and shortly we'll go visit for those who do want to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. So we've caught up on time. We'll have the Q&A, and for folks who do want to go on the tour of the biodigester, we'll leave at noon to go over there. It's about a 15-minute walk. And then after the tour of the digester is over, you're free to go. Please don't forget to leave your name tags here before you leave. Again, they're reusable. So I have a few questions before we open it up to the audience. As Gina and Circle have shown that there are many different solutions to handling food waste, and they all have trade-offs, right? Some can accept certain types of materials, some cannot. Some are better in sort of larger scale, some sort of have issues when you try to scale them up. And as Gina was mentioning, one of the biggest challenges that we hear from the restaurants is, particularly for the to-go restaurants and the takeout restaurants, is the single-use plastics and trying to replace that with some compostable materials. And it's very situational and solution dependent on what types of products you can use. So Gina and Circle, if you could talk a little bit more about, like, for the restaurants and food service folks here, what should they do now to try to reduce their single waste usage, given the solutions that are available now? What should they be thinking about in the future?
This problem is, as you mentioned, it's so overlapping with single-use plastics. It's so important that this state is on the right track right now. That they're banning certain single-use plastics, especially single-use plastics, and so. Well, one time using plastic forks and knives, and also the straws and stirrers, and so basically life is so easy, I guess, for us. Use it and then throw it away, and then food waste gets contaminated easily, and basically sometimes it goes into waste, and sometimes that waste, plastic waste, I know we're discussing food waste, but it goes into landfills, but also that plastic waste goes into other parts. And so that is why the consumers, restaurants should really consider reducing using plastic utensils, plastic straws, because it's going to impact, maybe make life easier for them, but it's going to make our future is more bearable. So basically it's going to impact food waste. When you compost it, when you anaerobically digest it, the contamination is so important. Either technology, if there is a plastic contamination in it, is going to reduce the efficiency. So basically, you don't want plastic forks, broken forks sticking out in the compost piles, and it's not acceptable. And also, obviously, the digester's efficiency is detrimental. Somehow, we have to change our very easy lifestyle, and we should consider not using. In fact, I was talking on Saturday over here, there was a climate forum, Princeton University Climate Forum. I was talking in the not-based, the resource section, I should say, and basically, how can we create solutions that maybe like ladies, or even households, I shouldn't say just ladies. In every household, we have china, we have ceramics, okay, glaze, but we are so